Hey fellas, it started as a regular day. I was supposed to work late, but a last minute schedule change let me head home early. The house was unusually quiet when I walked in. No TV, no music, nothing, just silence. Something about it felt off, but I didn't think too much of it as I made my way upstairs. When I reached the bedroom, I opened the door and froze. There was my wife, Emma, in bed with another man. They looked like deer caught in headlights, their wide eyes locking onto mine as the weight of the situation hit me. Emma scrambled to pull the sheets around her, her face a mixture of shock and guilt. "It's not what you think," she stammered, her voice shaky. I stood there, too stunned to respond. My stomach churned, my heart pounded in my chest, but I kept my face neutral. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I just stared at them in silence, letting the reality of her betrayal sink in. The man, who I didn't recognize, got dressed quickly, avoiding my gaze like a coward. He muttered something about leaving and bolted out the door without a word of apology. Emma stayed in bed, clutching the sheets tightly around her face. I still couldn't bring myself to speak. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I built my life with, had just shattered everything we had. When I finally turned and walked out of the room, Emma called after me. "Jake, wait! Let me explain." But I didn't stop. Not yet. I needed time to process what I'd just seen. And that's where this story really begins. I sat downstairs for what felt like hours, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. The silence in the house was suffocating, broken only by the occasional sound of Emma moving around upstairs. Eventually, she came down, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Jake," she said softly, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." I didn't respond, just looked at her, waiting. Let her say what she needed to say. She sat down across from me, clutching a tissue in her hand, and started to speak. "It's not like you think," she began, her tone defensive. "It just happened. I wasn't looking for this, I swear." I raised an eyebrow, still saying nothing. I wanted to see how far she'd go to twist the knife. She fidgeted with the tissue, avoiding my gaze. "You've been so distant lately," she said, her voice rising. "You're always working late, and when you're home, it's like you're not even here. I've been feeling so lonely in our marriage." There it was, the blame game. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms across my chest. "So, what you're saying is, this is my fault?" I asked, my tone colder than I intended. Her face crumpled and she started crying again. "I'm not saying that," she sobbed. I don't know. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I made a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated, my voice quiet but firm. "Emma, leaving the coffee maker on is a mistake. Forgetting to lock the door is a mistake. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I don't know what else to say," she whispered. "And I'm sorry." I stood up, my chest tightening with anger and disappointment. "Sorry doesn't cut it," I said, my voice shaking. "You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed everything we built together." She reached for me, but I stepped back, holding up a hand to stop her. "I'm not divorcing you," I said, surprising myself with the calmness of my tone. "Not yet." Her eyes widened in confusion. "You're not?" "No," I said, "not yet." I left the room without another word, my mind already racing. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. If she thought she could justify her actions and move on like nothing happened, she was dead wrong. Before I dive deeper into what happened next, I think it's important to give you some context about us, Emma and me. Maybe it'll help you understand why this betrayal hit me so hard. I met Emma about 7 years ago. I was at a mutual friend's party, nursing a beer and avoiding the awkward small talk when she walked in. She had this energy about her, confident, charming, the kind of person who could light up a room without even trying. It didn't take long for her to catch my eye. We hit it off immediately. She was sharp, funny, and had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. By the end of the night, I'd gotten her number, and a few days later we went on our first date. Things moved quickly after that. Within a year, we were married, and I thought I'd found my forever. Emma worked in marketing, events, social media, the whole 9 yards. She was great at her job, always coming home with stories about campaigns she'd nailed or clients she'd charmed. I run a small contracting business, so my work was more straightforward, but we balanced each other out. She brought excitement and creativity into my life, and I gave her stability, or at least I thought I did. For years, we seemed happy. We bought a house together, went on vacations, and had our share of lazy Sundays watching Netflix and ordering takeout. Sure, we had our arguments. Who doesn't? But nothing that made me doubt us. Looking back now, though, there were cracks I didn't see at the time. Emma loved attention. She thrived on it, whether it was from friends, coworkers, or even strangers at a party. I used to think it was just part of her outgoing personality, but maybe I should have paid more attention to how much she needed it. As for me, I'm not perfect. I work long hours, sometimes bringing the stress of the job home with me. Maybe I wasn't as attentive as I should have been. But no amount of work stress or missed date nights justifies what she did. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, a commitment. You don't throw that away because you're lonely or not getting enough attention. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart. It makes you question everything. Was she ever truly happy with me? Did she even mean the vows she said on our wedding day? I don't know. And at this point, I don't care. What I do know is this: the woman I thought I married is gone, replaced by someone I can't trust. And if she thought she could walk away from this without consequences, she had another thing coming. After Emma's weak apology and pathetic attempt at justification, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. Divorce was inevitable, but not yet. I wanted her to feel the same pain and humiliation she'd inflicted on me. I wasn't looking for revenge out of pettiness. I wanted her to truly understand the weight of her actions. The first step? Convincing her that I'd forgiven her. A couple days after I caught her, I approached her in the kitchen. She was nervously chopping vegetables, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. She hadn't been herself since the incident. She was quieter, more reserved, almost as if she was waiting for me to explode again. "Emma?" I said, leaning against the counter. She froze for a moment before looking up at me, her eyes cautious. "I've been thinking, and I don't want to throw away everything we've built. I think we can move past this." Her jaw dropped slightly, and for the first time in days, I saw a glimmer of hope in her expression. "You mean that?" she asked, her voice soft, almost disbelieving. I nodded, keeping my tone calm and sincere. "Yeah. I mean, it won't be easy, but I think we owe it to ourselves to try." She let out a shaky breath, and I could see the relief wash over her. "Thank you, Jake. I swear, I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll prove to you that I'm committed to us." Her words made me sick, but I forced a small smile. "That's all I ask." From that moment on, I played the role of the forgiving husband. I told her we'd take it one day at a time, that trust could be rebuilt. She seemed genuinely grateful, even eager to please. She started cooking elaborate meals, planning date nights, and showering me with affection. It was almost funny watching her try so hard to erase what she'd done. But while she was busy trying to mend our broken relationship, I was working on my plan. The idea hit me one night when I remembered her friend Anna. Anna had always been around. At parties, barbecues, game nights, she and Emma were close. But Anna had a flirty streak that didn't go unnoticed. She'd made a few comments over the years about how lucky Emma was to have me, or how I cleaned up nicely in a suit. At the time, I'd brushed it off as harmless fun. But now I saw an opportunity. I started small. A friendly text here, a compliment there. Anna responded immediately, her tone playful but interested. She didn't hesitate to engage, and before long, our conversations grew more frequent, more personal. It wasn't just about making Emma jealous. It was about showing her what betrayal felt like. If she wanted to disregard our vows, fine. Two could play that game. Anna and I began texting more frequently, and it didn't take long for our conversations to escalate. What started as innocent jokes turned into compliments, which soon turned into flirty banter. Anna ate it up. She seemed to enjoy the attention, and frankly, so did I. After everything Emma had put me through, it felt good to feel wanted again, even if this was all part of a larger plan. Emma, of course, had no idea. She'd always trusted Anna implicitly. They'd been friends for years, and Emma would often tell me how Anna was her rock during tough times. The irony wasn't lost on me. Our first in-person interaction since this all began was at a casual get-together at a mutual friend's house. Emma and I showed up together, putting on our usual united front, but I couldn't help noticing the way Anna's eyes lingered on me. She looked me up and down like she was sizing me up, and when she smiled, it was anything but innocent. During the party, I found a moment to catch her alone in the kitchen. "Having fun?" I asked, leaning casually against the counter. She smiled, tilting her head slightly. "More now that you're here." Her boldness caught me off guard, but I played it cool. "You're always good for my ego, Anna." She laughed, a soft, low sound that sent a chill down my spine. What can I say? You make it easy. The conversation was brief, but the tension was palpable. By the time Emma and I left the party, I could tell Anna was hooked. And that's when I knew the next phase of my plan was ready to begin. I started texting her more often after that night. I'd send her good morning messages, compliment her outfits when I saw her in social settings, and make her laugh with inside jokes. She responded eagerly, and before long, our conversations became a regular part of my day. The guilt I expected to feel never came. If anything, I felt justified. Emma had thrown our marriage away the moment she let another man into our bed. Now it was her turn to feel what betrayal was like. Anna didn't hesitate to open up about her own feelings either. She told me how she'd always thought I was attractive, how she admired my work ethic and the way I carried myself. She even admitted that she sometimes wondered what it would be like to be with someone like me. I leaned into her flirtations, feeding her just enough to keep her interest piqued, without giving too much away. I wanted her to want me, to be ready for the moment I'd set in motion from the start. Emma, meanwhile, was oblivious. She was so focused on proving her loyalty that she didn't notice my late-night texts or the subtle changes in my behavior, and I made sure to keep it that way. For now. It didn't take long for things with Anna to cross the line. She was eager, almost too eager, but that worked perfectly for me. The plan was falling into place faster than I had expected. Our first date, if you could call it that, was a coffee meetup. I framed it as a casual catch-up, but we both knew it was more than that. We met at a small cafe on the edge of town, far enough away that we wouldn't run into anyone who might recognize us. She showed up wearing a dress that hugged her curves in all the right places, and her smile was more confident than it had ever been. And my mind was all for that. "Hey, Jake," she said, her voice dripping with charm. "Nice to see you outside of the usual crowd." "Likewise," I replied, giving her a grin that I knew would make her heart skip a beat. We spent the next hour talking about everything and nothing. She laughed at all my jokes, leaned in just a little too close, and brushed her hand against mine more than once. By the time we finished our coffee, I could tell she was hooked. We met up a few more times after that. Each meeting grew a little bolder. A hand on my arm here, a lingering glance there. I kept the boundaries blurry enough to maintain deniability if Emma ever caught wind of it, but it was clear where this was heading. And so was Anna. One evening, as we sat in her car after meeting for drinks, she turned to me, her expression serious. "Jake," she said softly, "are we doing this? Because if we are, I'm all in." I paused, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. "I want you," I said finally, my voice low and deliberate, "but it has to stay between us." She nodded, her eyes locking onto mine. "Of course. I won't say a word." With that, the line was officially crossed. I kissed her and she melted into me, her lips hungry and eager. It wasn't just a kiss. It was the first step in a calculated move that I knew would change everything. Over the next few weeks, I kept our meetings secret. I made sure Emma never suspected a thing, playing the role of the forgiving husband while I carried out my plan. Anna, for her part, was more than willing to keep things under wraps. She seemed to enjoy the thrill of it all, and I made sure to feed into her excitement. But this wasn't about Anna. Not really. She was a means to an end, a pawn in the larger game I was playing. My focus wasn't on her. It was on Emma. Every move I made was carefully calculated to set the stage for the ultimate betrayal, one that would leave her feeling the same pain and humiliation she had inflicted on me. And soon it would be time to play my next card. After weeks of carefully building my connection with Anna, I decided it was time to take things to the next level. The plan was ready, and I was done waiting. Emma had to face the consequences of her actions, and Anna was the perfect piece to make it happen. Hospitalem on carry-on. One evening, after a flirty text exchange, I asked Anna if she'd like to come over for dinner. I told her it would be just the two of us. An intimate evening to celebrate how close we'd become. She didn't hesitate. When? She replied almost immediately, followed by a winking emoji. Thursday night, I typed back. Emma's working late. It'll be our little secret. She agreed, and the trap was set. The days leading up to Thursday were surreal. Emma was oblivious, still playing the role of the repentant wife. She even tried to plan a date night for the weekend, as if that would erase the damage she'd done. I smiled, nodded, and pretended to care, all while thinking about what was coming. On Thursday, I made sure everything was perfect. I tidied up the house, set the table, and even cooked a meal that looked like it belonged in a five-star restaurant. I wasn't doing this for Anna's benefit. It was all part of the bigger picture. This wasn't just a dinner. It was the final piece of a puzzle I'd been carefully assembling for weeks. Anna arrived right on time, dressed to kill. She wore a fitted black dress and heels that clicked against the hardwood floor as she walked in. "Wow," she said, looking around. "You really went all out." "Only the best for you," I replied with a smile, leading her to the dining room. We cooked together, laughing and sharing glasses of wine as the evening unfolded. Anna's carefree demeanor was a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. Part of me almost felt bad for using her like this, but I reminded myself that she knew exactly what she was getting into. She'd wanted this from the start. As dinner ended and the night wore on, I knew the time had come to move to the next phase. I poured us one last glass of wine, giving her a knowing look. "You know," I said, my voice low, "I've been thinking about this moment for a long time." Anna blushed, biting her lip. "So have I." I stood up and held out my hand, helping her to her feet. "Come with me," I said. She followed me upstairs without hesitation, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit. Dinner was a masterpiece. The table was set with candles, the wine was flowing, and the atmosphere was warm and intimate, exactly how I'd planned it. Anna was glowing, clearly enjoying the attention and effort I'd put into the evening. We laughed and talked about everything and nothing, the kind of easy conversation that felt deceptively natural. "You're really good at this, you know," Anna said, swirling her wine, setting the mood, making a girl feel special. I gave her a small smile, leaning back in my chair. "I aim to please." She giggled, a sound that was equal parts playful and seductive. It was obvious she thought this was the start of something meaningful, something real. I almost felt bad knowing how wrong she was. Almost. The evening progressed perfectly. We finished our meal and lingered over dessert, the tension between us building with every passing minute. Anna was completely comfortable, completely unaware of the trap she'd walked into. "Why don't we take this upstairs?" I suggested, my tone casual but deliberate. Her eyes lit up, and she nodded. "I thought you'd never ask." I stood and extended a hand, helping her out of her chair. She followed me willingly, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as we ascended the stairs. Everything was going according to plan. As we entered the bedroom, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. This was it, the moment I'd been building toward. I pushed aside any lingering doubts or guilt and focused on what needed to happen next. Anna sat on the edge of the bed, looking up at me with a smile that was equal parts anticipation and excitement. "So, what now?" she teased. I leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Now," I said, "we see how the night unfolds." As Anna and I sat on the bed, the tension in the room was palpable. She leaned in closer, her breath warm against my neck. I kissed her, softly at first, then deeper, more intense. It wasn't about passion for me, it was about setting the stage for what was about to happen. We were fully into it when I heard the sound of the front door opening downstairs. My heart started racing, not out of fear, but anticipation. Emma was home earlier than expected, just as I'd hoped. I deliberately told her I'd be out late with work stuff, knowing she'd come home tired and unsuspecting. The sound of her heels clicking on the floor made Anna pause. "Did you hear something?" she whispered, pulling back slightly. "Probably the neighbor's dog," I said smoothly, pulling her closer. She hesitated for a moment, but I leaned in again, keeping her attention focused on me. The footsteps grew louder, and then, like a scene from a movie, the bedroom door swung open. There stood Emma, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock as she took in the scene before her. She froze, the grocery bag she was carrying slipping from her hand and hitting the floor with a dull thud. "What the hell is this?" she screamed, her voice shaking with rage and disbelief. Anna scrambled to cover herself with the blanket, her face flushing with embarrassment. "Oh my God," she stammered, looking between Emma and me. "Jake, what's going on?" I stood up calmly, slipping on my shirt. I met Emma's furious gaze with a cold, unflinching stare. "What's the matter, Emma?" I asked, my tone dripping with mock concern. "You look upset." "Are you kidding me?" she shouted, tears welling in her eyes. "How could you do this? In our bed? In our house?" I stepped closer to her, leaning in so only she could hear. "Did you like it?" I whispered, my voice low and deliberate. "Because now you know exactly how it feels." Her face twisted in anger and anguish as the full weight of my words hit her. She started to say something, but the words caught in her throat. Anna, still wrapped in the blanket, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I turned back to Anna. "You might want to leave," I said evenly. "Things are about to get messy." Without a word, Anna grabbed her clothes and bolted from the room, her face a mixture of confusion and mortification. Emma and I were left alone, the silence between us heavier than ever. I didn't give her a chance to respond. I walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, stunned and broken. The moment was mine, and I'd made my point. As I walked downstairs, leaving Emma frozen in the bedroom, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction, anger, and a hollow sort of finality churned inside me. This wasn't about fixing anything or even evening the score. It was about making her understand the depth of her betrayal. I reached the kitchen and grabbed a glass of water, taking my time as I heard Emma's hurried footsteps coming down the stairs. She stormed into the room, her face a mess of tears and fury. "Jake," she screamed. "What the hell was that? What's wrong with you?" I turned to face her, setting the glass down on the counter. "What's wrong with me?" I repeated, my voice calm. "Are you seriously asking that after what you've done?" Her jaw dropped, and for a moment she was speechless. But then she found her words, her tone defensive. "I made a mistake, okay? I apologized. But this is insane, Jake. How could you—" "Stop," I said, cutting her off. "Don't you dare stand there and act like the victim. You brought this on yourself, Emma. You're the one who brought another man into our bed. You're the one who lied to my face. Don't you think for 1 second that I owe you any sympathy?" Her face crumpled, and she took a shaky breath. "I thought you forgave me," she whispered. "You said you wanted to work on things." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Forgive you? Emma, I never forgave you. I just wanted you to know how it feels to be betrayed by the person you trusted most." She stood there, tears streaming down her face, her hands trembling. "I can't believe you did this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You ruined us." "No, Emma," I said, my voice cold. "You ruined us. All I did was show you the consequences of your actions." I walked over to the counter and picked up a folder I'd prepared earlier. I opened it and slid the divorce papers across the table toward her. "Here," I said. "This is how it ends." She stared at the papers, her tears falling onto the polished wood of the table. "You can't be serious," she said, her voice cracking. "Excellent point. After everything we've been through, you're just giving up?" "Giving up?" I repeated, my tone sharp. "Emma, you gave up on us the moment you decided to cheat. This isn't me giving up. This is me moving on." She looked up at me, her expression a mix of desperation and defeat. "Jake, please," she begged. "I'll do anything. We can fix this. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I shook my head, my resolve unshaken. "You can't fix this, Emma. You broke something that can't be repaired. I'm done." Without another word, I turned and walked out of the house, leaving her sobbing at the kitchen table. As I stepped into the cool night air, I felt a strange sense of relief. The pain and anger were still there, but for the first time in weeks, I felt free. The night was quiet as I walked away from the house that had once been my sanctuary. The air was cool against my skin, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The weight of the betrayal, the lies, the constant second guessing, it was all beginning to lift. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could still hear Emma's sobs echoing in my mind, but they didn't stir any sympathy in me. Not anymore. She had made her choices, and now she was left to live with the consequences. The next few days passed in a blur. I stayed at a friend's place while I finalized my plans. The divorce process, thankfully, was straightforward. The papers I had left on the table were already signed on my end, and Emma didn't fight them. Whether it was guilt, shame, or just exhaustion, I didn't care. I only cared that this chapter of my life was finally closing. Emma tried to reach out a few times, sending long, emotional texts about how sorry she was and how she'd do anything to make things right. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She'd had her chance, and she'd thrown it away. As for Anna, I'd cut things off with her immediately. She was confused and hurt, but I didn't owe her an explanation. She'd played her part in my plan, and that was all she'd ever been, a part of the plan. I wasn't proud of what I'd done, but I didn't regret it either. Sometimes you have to burn bridges to build a better path. Now, months later, I'm in a much better place. I moved to a new city, started fresh, and focused on rebuilding my life. I've reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I'd let slip, and even started dating again. It's not easy. Trust doesn't come naturally anymore, but I'm learning. What this whole experience taught me is that betrayal doesn't define you. It doesn't have to break you. It's painful, yes, but it's also a chance to grow, to find strength you didn't know you had. Not the same person I was before Emma's betrayal, but I think that's a good thing. I'm stronger, wiser, and more focused on what I deserve. As for Emma, I don't know what's become of her. Maybe she's learned from her mistakes. Maybe she hasn't. Either way, it's not my concern anymore. I've closed that chapter, locked it away, and moved forward. This isn't the life I envisioned when I said I do, but it's the life I have now. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like it's mine. Completely, unapologetically mine. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me what you think about that story. Have a good day, and bye.